That's quite a big one. I don't know if you guys want me to read that whole thing out, but I need a mover and a seconder on that as well, please. Ms. Butler, do you want to take this one from here? please?
Sure. So this is the report that was brought forward in the committee of the whole meeting this evening, and staff are asking for it to be brought forward to the regular for adoption so that we can proceed with the notifications towards the remedial action and make sure that that safety hazard of that burnt house is taken down. It is a very lengthy motion. So I suggest if anybody online is looking, that they look at the agenda to see that motion. But it basically sets out the criteria for us to proceed with demolition of the property.
Thank you for that great explanation. Okay, is there someone to move that, please? And a seconder? And all those in favor? That was carried, thank you. And the next one that we're bringing forward is the solid yard and waste regulation amendment bylaw number 2949, 2024, and we'll be bringing the report forward. All those in favor? Yeah, sorry, Councillor Cashel and seconder, please. And all those in favor? Thank you, that was carried. So reports and meeting minutes of council committees. Resolution is that council adopt the following minutes and recommendations within. So the first item is the Community Safety Task Force meeting minutes, and that's Councillor Martin and Councillor Benson.
Through the chair, we did find a mistake in the, was pointed out by Councillor Cashwell in the minutes.
Okay.
Councillor Benson, can you?
Yes, through the chair, and the Sergeant with Sentiments update. Talked about new supervisors starting 2 weeks ago and still challenged with, and then it was a blank, and it should be staffing.
Okay.
And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Butler, do we do all of these at once and then move and second them, or do them individually?
Your
With
worship,
the
through the chair, I would say just go through A, B, and C to see if there's any comments from those chairs on those committees, and then
Okay.
you can adopt all of them.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so the Trail Regional Airport Advisory Committee. Chair, Counselor Hanson and Counselor Butler. Any comments or anything on that report? No? Okay. The Trail Area Health and Environment Committee, Chair Jones and Hanson. Do you have any comments or anything to report on that?
No, I just, I'm looking forward to everything moving forward with the consultation process that's coming in January and the great reports on the flood levels. I think are wonderful that was out in the media, so.
Great. Thank you, Counselor Hanson. So we have those three committee meeting updates, and I would like to have council receive those. So is there a mover, please? Counselor Cashel and a seconder, and all those in favor? That was carried, thank you. Next up, we have the Regional District of Kootenai Boundary Report, and Counselor Martin, I'll let you.
Thank you, through the chair. On behalf of council, I attended the following regional district meetings. On November 27th, an RDKB Policy and Personnel Committee meeting via Teams. The committee reviewed numerous policies which will be brought forward. I'm not going to list them all because there's a large list. Will be brought forward to the board. And we also received a report from the Manager of Information Technology regarding the need to properly ensure that the IT department is appropriately resourced and structured to support the increasing technology of the RDKB. They'll be looking at adding 2 more full-time staff. On November the 27th, I attended an RDKB board meeting, and both of these were via Teams. We had 2 delegations. One was the Kootenai Employment Services and Community for Futures East Kootenai. We spoke about how the Regional Childcare Project aims to strengthen the childcare sector by helping with the recruitment of workers and supporting childcare centers. They're seeking $15,000 from each of the 3 regional districts. The other delegation was the Kootenai and Boundary Farm Advisors. Since 2017, they have provided extension services to farmers. In the RDKB, 196 farms and 273 producers have been supported. In 2025, they will continue to deliver these services. The board looked at short-term equipment financing of the following. They authorized a number of 5-year loans, which included a structure protection unit for the Emergency Preparedness Service, a new fire engine for Kootenai Boundary Regional Fire Rescue, a new fire tender for the Beaverdale Fire Service, and a new fire engine / rescue truck for the Big White Fire Service. One note that CBT resident directed grants, the Ready Grants, submission intake period will change from early January to the day following the Family Day in February. This will be annually. The next Ready intake submission deadline will be Tuesday, February 18th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Recycle BC Depot contract renewal. The depot services for the collection of residential generated packaging and printed paper materials will continue under agreement with Recycle BC at the Rock Creek Transfer Station, West Boundary Landfill, Christina Lake Transfer Station, and McKelvey Creek Landfill for an initial term of January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2029. And they approved various grants and aids for Area C, Christina Lake, Area D, Rural Grand Forks, and Area E, West Boundary. That's it for my report. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions.
Thank you, Counselor Martin. Is there any questions for Counselor Martin on this report? Oh, okay. Is there any other reports? I don't have any under this category, so I guess we'll move on to the correspondence for information. And we have one item there, and the resolution is that the following correspondence be received for information. And that was the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, November 22nd, 2024. A follow-up from the UBCM meeting on September 17th, 2024. Okay, and seconder, please. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, on to my report, the mayor's report, and I do have a few items to report on this evening. I just wanted to report that I attended the Salvation Army kickoff. It was held at Farrell Foods, and myself and Danny Farrell was there. And it started the annual Christmas Kettle campaign to raise funds in order to combat food insecurity in our community. It was a fun event and it's something that I think people start looking forward to when they get to this time of the season. And there are, kettle locations this year at Trail Foods and Trail and in Roslyn, Walmart and the BC Liquor Store. And if anybody is interested in helping out, they can get a hold of, Rachel Olson at the, Salvation Army. Excited to tell you that I actually attended my first FCM meeting for rural and northern community committees. And FCM is the federal
Federation of Canadian.
Thank you, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, thank you. And so I have to tell you, it was quite interesting because it's very difficult to navigate their website to get into their email account to be able to see the files and look at the committee reports. And they actually have a workshop on it to get so people can figure out the website. It's quite difficult. So my first meeting for that, it was actually an in-person meeting, December 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Ottawa. I attended by Zoom. And our first meeting of the day for the opening session started at 5 a.m. in the morning. And it was a committee of the whole. It was quite interesting, you know, to see the amount of people in the room and the discussion that they were having. And it was, I did recognize the mayor from Caslow there. She was, on the floor. Anyway, I just also wanted to say that my rural and northern BC committee meeting was at 12:30 that afternoon. And it looked like it was gonna be a really good meeting. The time was actually set aside before the meeting to talk about rural and urban priorities before we got into the actual rural committee meeting. And once they got in there, they were talking about how important that public safety and economic development, everything that we talk about, you know, in our local environment, and how they were committed to maintaining the dialogue and making sure that federal government is talking about it and increasing our presence at the provincial and territory association conferences. It was really, really interesting, but then we lost connection on the internet, so I couldn't complete the meeting. So I'm looking forward to getting the minutes, and once I get the minutes, I will forward them to council. Just, you know, I think it's going to be a really interesting committee to be on. I also wanted to talk about the 75th anniversary of the Memorial Center. Really, really fun activity, and you know, we all know that the Memorial Center is really the heart of our community, and lots of pride in that arena, and 75 years old from the opening of November 29th, 1949. So I had the opportunity to drop the puck with the general manager, Matt Perilla, and it was just a really nice event, and you know, everybody is so proud of that arena. It was great to be there. A quick update on the Community Health Center that was announced for the city of Trail. I want to say it was just before the election in September. So I did reach out to Jeff Jones, who is our representative on that committee, for an update, and he did send me some points that I could report out quickly on his behalf. And he said the architect has been working with the design and build group to finalize plans for the space. And they're hoping to begin construction in January, which is really exciting. And they're actively recruiting for the position of executive director on the board. They've hired a consultant to assist with the change management and processes that are inclusive of that, engaged representatives of multiple stakeholder groups, and they're looking to a March or April opening. So that's exciting. I just had a couple of meetings with the Association of Kootenay Boundary Local Government. We had one advocacy meeting, and we're continuing to follow up from our last conference on items that we had prioritized as important topics to bring forward at our next convention, as well as preparing for UBCM. And there was, we are continuing to advocate for affordable housing, wildfire prevention, transit routes, food security. And we also put forward some feedback from the AKBLG to the recommendations of the code of conduct from the UBCM. The UBCM has put it forward a report on that, and we actually gave some really good feedback on it. Also had, Councillor Hanson also is a part of the AKBLG, and she also attended on with me. The AKBLG Convention Committee, we had a meeting to go over the submissions for presenters to the conference in April, and the next conference actually is in April in Kimberley. Last but not least, last week there was a quick meeting with the BC Winter Games. It was an evening meeting. We just want to tell everybody that we do have all of our directors in place now, which is really exciting.
Yes.
And start the campaign for volunteers very quickly. You'll see stuff in the paper and hopefully on our website. So we will need volunteers. I know it's in 2026, but we have to get those volunteers in place so we can make sure that, you know, we have the best winter games that we can have. And and also I wanted to report that along with myself and council, I know that all of council was there. We did help support and help organize the walk for domestic violence that took place at the Trail Library outside of the Riverfront Center. And it was a great walk. Lots of people, I want to say there was 200 people there. Really was a nice event for a very tragic, nice event for a very tragic event. And I just wanted to thank council for all being a part of that. And that's my report for this evening. Any questions? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Sandy. I also wanted to let everybody know that we are having the Santa Claus Parade, and that's this Friday, December 13th. And we're still looking for people to participate in it. If you have, want to put a float in or decorate your truck up and want to be a part of the parade, please get a hold of Councillor Hanson or Councillor Butler, and they'll give you the right directions to get involved. Is there anything I missed on that parade? Is there, do you want to talk about, is there hot dogs and hot
Yes.
chocolate? Okay.
Yes, so it will start and end at the Riverfront Center, and we will have Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus coming in at the end. There'll be a tree light up following the parade with complimentary hot chocolate, coffee sponsored by Trail Coffee Company, and hot dogs from Curtis No Frills that they thoughtfully donated, and the Legion that's offered to help us with that. So it'll be a great event, and we're working on a choir. So we will have Oh Christmas Tree, Oh Christmas Tree. Thank you, Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Okay, if there's no other questions, we will move on to item number 17, and that is the bylaws for consideration. And a bylaw to amend the waterworks and sanitary sewer regulation bylaw number 2398, 1998. And we report from the Chief Administrative Officer advancing the 2025 water and sewer utility rate user fees and explaining the necessity of increasing rates. And I'll pass it over to.
Thanks, Mayor Jones, and thanks, council. One of the things that I heard, council was being asked about is, we've got these rates coming, and again, I propose that we continue increasing over that next little while, and there's some questions as to why or what capital big projects are coming. And so I did try to outline some of that in my report. So that helps, I think, council when you get cornered in the the grocery store about what's happening, and in particular, the Charles Lake Drive is obviously a major project there. 4.5 million, to be done over 2 years, and then also, and that's, 2027 there, we've got, the expected, cost there to have the Tatanack Water Reservoir, replaced. So those are sort of our known numbers now. As we talked about before, we have the water master plan, and so that I think is going to speak to some of their priorities that may come up. And when I look at where we're at right now and the final documents that I put into the folder there, right now we do dip, but depending on what happens with some of the year ends or some other ways of finding some ways to lift that up, we're heading in the right direction. As much as I know that it can be difficult for our homeowners, and in conjunction with the fact that there's an expectation, not fully determined yet, that sewer service is going to go up significantly at the RDKB. These are lifelong assets, aged assets, and they need to be replaced. A lot of times you don't see them. They're not a bridge that you can go, hey, and point at. But I think we all know that if you didn't turn on your tap and had fresh water or hot water for your shower, those are sort of those critical things that we need in the community. And I commend council for looking at a plan over time to get us to a rate where we not only cover the cost of the operations of water, but we also are able to self-fund the capital upgrades. It's going to take time, and in particular, like I say, the master plan for water should speak to where we need to go first. And again, on the sewer side, it was some great conversation from managers today, just about hearing about some of the water breaks that we've had. Some have been a little bit less this year, but when you had 17 the year before, 5, again, some of the ones were pretty even. And just understanding that infrastructure is aging. We've got, clay pipes, and the tree roots love to get in there and be able to do that, and looking at where there's a root cutting programs, there's all kinds of work that can be done. We're also looking into the future in our plans for the water sewer utility, I should say, that we would also again be looking at a master plan. I think it's important for council and the community to know that the city is responsible for transmission. So we gather all the waste material, and then we get it out to the plant. The plant is underneath basically a community, which I think is great. It's sufficient. We're sharing the fact that we don't have a sewage treatment plant in each community, but we have one that contains all of our waste, and the days of just being able to let your pollution go into rivers is just not acceptable. So the fact that RDKB was successful in getting a pretty significant grant obviously helps out. Inflation not only has hurt this project, but also I know for the communities at large, but just everyone that's trying to build a home or do any renovation has seen cost escalation. And that's the real driver as to why some of these projects are going up more than that they were budgeted. And of course, the grant doesn't change. So that means more for the taxpayer to work on or assist with. I think that there's a cover level 2 just on some of the reallocation of some of the tax funding that we currently have, which is taking some pressure off of rates and kind of getting to a sooner, to get into more inflationaries ongoing. And I would expect that as we go through and work on what other capital projects, we may find that we still have cost pressures just when we get to that. But I think that we're really heading in the right direction, and one also has to remember that the water treatment plant is under ministry regulation. So sometimes they make changes, and you have maybe some time, but you need to follow through with the changes that the ministry is asking for. So those are some of those cost pressures that you are may not saying, hey, this main needs to be replaced, but it's a new cost pressure that comes on because the changing government regulation. And I know it's not been easy for our community over time here, but I do recognize that the water rate needs to be at a level where it's self-sustaining. And I thank you for your consideration of the rates that are being proposed here.
Okay, any questions for Mr. McClure? Okay, so the recommendation for council to consider and resolve is that the waterworks and sanitary sewer regulations amendment bylaw number 2947/2024 be read for the first, second, and third time. Is there a mover, please? Okay, all those in favor? That was carried, thank you.
If I could, Mayor, there's one thing I did forget to mention. The expectation, I said in my communication, is now that we passed this, we would get the bills ready. Now, normally we would mail those bills out, and so just trying to see that in the new year, we may be coming back. If there isn't a resolution by that time, do we need to do it differently? Do we maybe need to think about extending the due date, that we may have to look at or work on how best that we would be able to make sure that owners get their invoice and have a appropriate time to be able to pay it, but so just something to consider. That's all.
I have a question. So if we extend the due date, is that an expense to us or? How much leeway
Yeah,
is there?
it's not an expense, I guess you could say, because in theory, someone might hold off a month to pay and then we don't get the money in the bank, which again can have some interest income earning effect, but for the most part, I think if you were to delay it, I mean, I think that at this stage, as we get closer to Christmas and the date of trying to get anything through Canada Post kind of passes, I think for both of them, there becomes, I guess, the leverage that would have had of let's get something resolved before Christmas time starts to kind of dissipate, and I don't know, they get even more locked at, time to resolve, but that's my only thought, Mayor, is that
Okay.
we may find that if they've already kind of help people get things through to Christmas, what does it look like?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so item B is a bylaw to amend the solid and yard waste regulation bylaw number 2936 for 2024. Did you have any comments on
I
that?
do, again, just out to council and to the community, one of the things that council had looked at, again, public, I would emphasize that they are public meetings, we don't get a lot of public attending, I know the public can watch the YouTube videos afterwards, and always welcome to email me or ask questions if they have any on, how we come up, or where do we discuss what's happening with utilities in the year. One component, and we talked about this in the end of 2023, going to 2024, is that without having the collection of garbage being done through the city and all that being rolled into an efficient organics and garbage collection by the RDKB, the fee was mainly set up at that time to be able to pay for collection. So when you drop from 145 area down to $20 because you're dealing with yard and garden waste, which is done by city staff, it seems a lot more efficient to sort of have that fee eliminated. So as much as there is sort of this increase for those utility rates, there will be no garbage rate on utility bill this year, so that will help with some of that cost pressure. But I don't want to pretend it just disappears. What does happen and get going through taxation and being shared, by other participants in our taxation system, that the average home last year was about 384,000. Would pay about $6 more. So again, obviously, if your home was worth less, you pay a little bit less than that. If your home was worth more than that, then you're gonna pay a bit more on your taxes. But overall, on the average home, you should probably see about an $18 decrease on what we were charging for garbage collection through that utility manner. And so again, that there's a little bit of I would say cost relief that is coming through on the utilities this year by changing the rate inside the bylaw for yard and garden waste.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions for Mr. McClure? Okay, the recommendation is that council consider and resolve that the solid yard waste regulation bylaw number 2949, 2024 be read for a first, second, and third time. And all those in favor? Thank you, that was carried. So we have kind of a new item here on the agenda. Item number 18 is a notice of motion. And I just was going to get, Ms. Butler to explain, the relevance of the notice of motion.
Yes, thank you through the chair. So, notice of motion, of course, is, when a council member wants to put forward something for consideration. So, at this time, the general practice would be for, the chair of the meeting to ask if there's any notice of motions for submission. And if there's none, that's nil. If there is, whoever is putting that motion forward would just be introducing it at this meeting. And then it would be put on the next regular meeting for consideration. So you'll see it always on the agenda, just in hopes that, or in consideration that somebody may put forward a notice of motion. And if you ever do feel like you need to put one forward and need help to design one, please, door is always open to help you out with that.
Okay. Is there, go ahead, Councilor Benson. Oh, no, that was just for information purposes.
I do that if I could,
Oh,
through the
okay.
chair. I just, for consideration, when the Trail Arts Council, presented to us their grant and aid, they also asked for consideration for, as a line item in our upcoming budgets, and I didn't know if this would be an appropriate notice of motion as something to consider.
Well, I think that what I would say is I heard that, and I think even last year they talked a bit about it, and I think as far as getting the budget done last year again, we were tied up against the deadline and feeling a lot more confident that we'll be able to have time to discuss that
Okay.
as part of our budget, and just say, hey, is this something that council wants to do, and how would we balance that with the other asks that we have, or can we just allocate a portion of what we currently have to sort of make it a line item, so it'll be ongoing, but I would expect that I had that in my
Okay,
thing, but I asked that you also mark it down, because I forget things, as you know. And if we get to the budget meeting, you're like, hey, wait a second, we haven't discussed that, that's where I think that would be an appropriate time to
Okay.
discuss that for budget.
awesome, thank you.
If I could, to share, General Manager Butler, if there is someone that brings forward a notice of motion, does that need to be voted on before it becomes something that would be brought forward? Like, so if I brought forward, if a council member brought forward a notice of motion, does council hear it and then say, I'm not sure, or yes, I'd like for that, I vote yes that we would hear that, or is it a case of no, we're not interested in having that notice of motion?
So the process is they introduce the notice of motion at one meeting, just so that council has time to reflect on that notice of motion, and then it will be considered at the following meeting. So it is just an introduction. There is no formal receipt of it. It's laid on the table at the first meeting, and then at the second meeting, that's when the resolution comes forward. And it would be just like any other motion where it's laid on the table. Usually the person who has submitted the notice of motion will move it. And then council has the opportunity to second it and talk about it, or not second it, and it dies at the table.
And forgive me, but on that notice of motion, would that come to our committee of the whole, or would it come to?
No, notice of the motions are only dealt with at the regular meeting.
Good question.
I'm learning.
Okay, so, next meetings, we have January the 13th of 2025 for the Committee of the Whole, meeting, followed by the regular council meeting at 6 p.m. held in the council committee room and or chambers at 1394 Pine Avenue, Trail, BC, and we also will have, a Zoom meeting. So any questions? This is an opportunity for council to ask any questions, the question period, or is this the?
It's just
public?
the public question period,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. And we have adjournment. Motion,
Do we need to check, if there's any questions from public interest that seems to be? Yeah, I know.
What's their address?
public.
You know that populations is joined. Yeah, I'm sharing that you don't have. to direct this. Stopping me.
Okay, adjournment. Is there a motion? Okay, all those in favor? That was carried. Thank you. Thanks
Thank you.
everyone for being so patient on this new journey here.